What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. The Wall Street Journal just released a bombshell article about the UFO topic, and let's just say the response has been divided, for sure, to say the least. So in today's video, we are going to go over this entire Wall Street Journal article. It was behind a paywall, but don't worry, I paid behind the wall and we got access. So I'm also going to show you a couple responses to this article, specifically from Ryan Graves, a pilot who testified with David Fravor and David Grush in July of 2023. We got his response as he partook in the article and wasn't too happy with how it turned out. We've also got a response from Luis Elizondo going on News Nation with Chris Cuomo to talk about this article. So let's jump in. All right, Vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And, of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every week about the UFO phenomena, and I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Let's make that happen, Vetters. All right, let's jump into this response from Ryan Graves first. So I've got it pulled up here. Now, he is quoting the author of this article. His name is Joel Schechtman, right, for the Wall Street Journal. And Joel writes, Bombshell. Hey, that's my word, Joel. Anyway, the Pentagon helped spread UFO myths for a generation. When a new DOD investigation dug up the military's role, the Air Force pushed for a cover-up. Okay, and then he puts a link to the article, and Ryan Graves responds, this article does nothing to account for the near daily reality of sightings that pilots, service members, and regular folks witness. I'm disappointed that after the multiple good faith conversations I had with Joel Schechtman, he neglected to include any of this information, leading to this very one-sided piece. Okay, so Ryan is clearly not happy with this. Now, let's get to Luis Elizondo and Chris Cuomo talking about this article on News Nation. And stay with me because, again, we're going to go through the entire article from the Wall Street Journal and see what everyone's talking about.
The other narrative is this, and it shows how far behind on this story so much of the media is. The Wall Street Journal releases what they call a bombshell story about how the U.S. government, it's this guy is calling the Wall Street Journal's story a bombshell, not the Wall Street Journal saying it themselves, that the U.S. government fabricated alien tech and allowed UFO rumors to fester in order to cover up their super secret tech. Now, you know, we've been talking about this for years. This is an aspect. I want you to clarify what's real and not real here, because I see it as a 50-50. Does the U.S. government allow UFO stuff to cover some of their own tech and activities? Yes.
In fact, it has in the past. You're absolutely right.
But they have not fabricated everything that's supposedly alien technology. There's a lot of stuff they have no idea what it is.
You're absolutely correct. In fact, what you're referring to is back in the early days of the stealth program, what they used to call tacit blue and have blue programs back in the 70s and 80s, before we actually introduced the world to the fact that we had stealth technology. A lot of times we were testing this new technology over our test ranges like Area 51. And unfortunately, sometimes the civilian population would see this type of technology. And rather than correct the public and say, no, this is actually our technology, we were okay with allowing them to create their own narrative that it was some sort of unidentified flying object, UFO in the old vernacular. That's what we call denial and deception, also cover for action. It's not uncommon in the intelligence community. It's not uncommon in the classified world. The problem is if you do it too much when you have real UAP issues, then what you wind up doing is oversensitizing people to this story that everything is just U.S. tech, when the reality is it's absolutely not all U.S. tech.
All right, now it's time we get to this article, but before we do, I got to keep the mics on, y'all, so let me introduce the sponsor for today's video, PIA VPN. I think it's time we talk about your online security and how you're handling it, because today I want to talk to you about PIA VPN, Private Internet Access. And what is a VPN? Well, it's a virtual private network. What do virtual private networks do? When you go online with a VPN, all your inbound and outbound traffic travels through an encrypted tunnel. This means ISPs, cyber criminals, network admins, and anyone else who might be snooping on your activity won't be able to see what you're up to. A VPN routes your traffic through a remote server instead of sending it straight to the site you're trying to reach. This masks your real IP address with one of its own, hiding it from prying eyes. That way, none of it can lead back to your real IP address. And that's where PIA VPN can help you out. A VPN can also make it seem like you're somewhere else. If you're in the UK, for instance, you can connect to a VPN server in the US to get a US IP address. The more servers and country locations your VPN provider has, the more options you have. And that's where PIA VPN has your back. And one subscription protects an unlimited number of your devices. And let me remind you, vetters, this is a product I use. VPNs are awesome for connecting, honestly, across the globe to get access to content you normally wouldn't get. Is there a favorite show on Netflix that you want to see, but it's only available in the UK and you're in the US? Guess what? VPN. You want to protect yourself against people who may be trying to snoop around your stuff? Guess what? VPN. And that's where PIA comes in, because they have an amazing offer right now. By using my link down below, you can get a very special discount, 83% off. It's just a couple dollars a month. You even get 4 months free. So please use the link down below and get started protecting your privacy online today. All right, let's jump into this article. All right, so Wall Street Journal. Here we go. The title, The Pentagon Disinformation That Fueled America's UFO Mythology. And there's a summary of the article, okay? It says, the Pentagon's UFO investigation revealed that the government deliberately spread disinformation to cover up secret weapons programs. This included fabricating evidence and allowing UFO myths to persist. The investigation also uncovered a bizarre hazing ritual where new commanders were briefed on a fake alien project, leading to widespread confusion and fear. What? All right, let's jump into this article, y'all. So it says right here, U.S. military fabricated evidence of alien technology and allowed rumors to fester to cover up real secret weapons programs. Now, that's long been suspected, covering this topic if you cover it enough. So anyway, all right, let's jump in. The congressionally ordered probe took investigators back to the 1980s when an Air Force colonel visited a bar near Area 51, a top secret site in the Nevada desert. He gave the owner photos of what might be flying saucers. The photos went up on the walls. And into the local lore went the idea that the U.S. military was secretly testing recovered alien technology. But the colonel was on a mission of disinformation. The photos were doctored. The now retired officer confessed to the Pentagon investigators in 2023. The whole exercise was a ruse to protect what was really going on at Area 51. The Air Force was using the site to develop top secret stealth fighters, viewed as a critical edge against the Soviet Union. Military leaders were worried that the programs might get exposed if locals somehow glimpsed a test flight of, say, the F-117 stealth fighter, an aircraft that truly did look out of this world. Better that they believe it came from Andromeda. This episode, this episode, reported now for the first time, was just one of a series of discoveries the Pentagon team made as it investigated decades of claims that Washington was hiding what it knew about extraterrestrial life. That effort culminated in a report released last year by the Defense Department that found allegations of a government cover-up to be baseless. In fact, Wall Street Journal investigation reveals the report itself amounted to a cover-up, but not in the way the UFO conspiracy industry would have people believe. The public disclosure left out the truth behind some of the foundational myths about UFOs. The Pentagon itself sometimes deliberately fanned the flames in what amounted to the U.S. government targeting its own citizens with disinformation. Well, that's messed up too. Right? Okay. At the same time, the very nature of Pentagon operations and opaque bureaucracy that kept secret programs embedded within secret programs, cloaked in cover stories, created fertile ground for the myths to spread. These findings represent a stunning new twist in the story of America's cultural obsession with UFOs. In the decades after a 1938 radio broadcast of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds spread panic throughout the country, speculation about alien visitors remained largely the province of supermarket tabloids, Hollywood blockbusters, and costume conferences in Las Vegas. More recently, things took an ominous turn when a handful of former Pentagon officials went public with allegations of a government program to exploit extraterrestrial technology and hide it from Americans. Those claims led to the Pentagon's investigation. Now, evidence is emerging that the government efforts to propagate UFO mythology date back all the way to the 1950s. This is a night view of the extraterrestrial highway near Area 51. I've been on that highway. It looks just like that. All right. This account is based on interviews with 24 current and former U.S. officials, scientists, and military contractors involved in the inquiry, as well as thousands of pages of documents, recordings, emails, and text messages. At times, as with the deception around Area 51, military officers spread false documents to create a smokescreen for real secret weapons programs. In other cases, officials allowed UFO myths to take root in the interest of national security. For instance, to prevent the Soviet Union from detecting vulnerabilities in the systems protecting nuclear installations, stories tend to take on a life of their own, such as a 3-decade journey of a purported piece of space metal that turned out to be nothing of the sort. One long-running practice was more like a fraternity hazing ritual that spun wildly out of control. Investigators are still trying to determine whether the spread of disinformation was the act of local commanders and officers or a more centralized institutional program. The Pentagon omitted key facts in the public version of the 2024 report that could have helped put some UFO rumors to rest, both to protect classified secrets and to avoid embarrassment, the journal investigation found. The Air Force in particular pushed to omit details it believed could jeopardize secret programs and damage careers. The lack of full transparency has only given more fuel to conspiracy theories. Members of Congress have formed a caucus composed mainly of Republicans to examine unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, in bureaucratic speak. The caucus has demanded the intelligence community disclose which agencies are involved with UAP crash retrieval programs. MAGA skepticism about the deep state further feeds the notion that government bureaucrats have been keeping those secrets from the American public. At a November hearing of 2 House Oversight subcommittees, Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, cast doubt on the Pentagon's report. Quote, "I'm not a mathematician, but I can tell you that doesn't add up," she said. A guard stands at the entrance to the Nevada Test and Training Range near Area 51 in 2019. Okay, look at that dog. It's like, hey, what's up? You coming in here? I will bite your ass. Right? All right. Stupid enough. Okay, Jesus. Sean Kirkpatrick, a precise, bespectacled scientist who once spent years studying vibrations in laser crystals, was nearing retirement from government service when he received the call that would change his life. By 2022, he had ascended to chief scientist at the Missile and Space Intelligence Center at the Redstone Arsenal near Huntsville, Alabama. As he sat at his desk at 6:30 one morning drinking coffee and skimming through intelligence reports that had come in overnight, his Tandberg desk phone, essentially a classified version of FaceTime, rang. It was a deputy undersecretary from the Pentagon who was putting on a tie as he told Kirkpatrick about a new office Congress ordered the department to set up to examine unidentified anomalous phenomena. The undersecretary and I put together a short list of who could do it, and you're at the top, the official relayed, adding that they had settled on Kirkpatrick because he both had a scientific background and had built a half a dozen organizations within the intelligence community. Is that the real reason Kirkpatrick countered, or am I the only one stupid enough to say yes? Okay, let me get some coffee here. In short order, Kirkpatrick had the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office set up and running. Just the latest in an alphabet soup of special government projects set up to study UFOs stretching back more than a half a century. ARROW, as it is known, operated out of an unmarked office near the Pentagon with a few dozen staffers and a classified budget. The mission fell into 2 buckets. One was to collect data on sightings, particularly around military installations, and assess whether they could be explained by earthly technology. Amid growing public attention, the number of such reports has skyrocketed in recent years to 757 in the 12 months after May 2023, from 144 between 2004 to 2021. Arrow linked most of the incidents to balloons, birds, and the proliferation of drones cluttering the skies. Okay. Many pilot accounts of floating orbs were actually reflections of the sun from Starlink satellites, investigators found. They're still examining whether some unexplained events could be foreign technologies, such as Chinese aircraft using next-generation cloaking methods that distort their appearance. And there's Sean Kirkpatrick doing a Banana Republic ad in the woods. Hilarious. Sean Kirkpatrick, the first director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, has retired to a mountaintop retreat. Oh, okay. He said his mountaintop retreat. The office found that some seemingly inexplicable events weren't so strange after all. In one, a 2015 video appeared to show a spherical object buzzing past a jet fighter, at almost impossible speed. Oh my gosh, dude. The pilot can be heard saying in the video, laughing, but later investigators determined there was nothing much to see. Whatever the object was, the camera angle and relative speed of the jet had made it appear to be going much faster than it was. The office's second mission proved to be more peculiar: to review the historical record going back to 1945 to assess the claims made by dozens of former military employees that Washington operated a secret program to harvest alien technology. Congress granted the office unprecedented access to America's most highly classified programs to allow Kirkpatrick's team to run the stories to ground. As Kirkpatrick pursued his investigation, he started to uncover a hall of mirrors within the Pentagon. Cloaked in official and non-official cover, on one level, the secrecy was understandable. The U.S., after all, had been locked in an existential battle with the Soviet Union for decades, each side determined to win the upper hand in the race for ever more exotic weapons. But Kirkpatrick soon discovered that some of the obsession with secrecy verged on the farcical. A former Air Force officer was visibly terrified when he told Kirkpatrick's investigators that he had been briefed on a secret alien project decades earlier, and was warned that if he ever repeated the secret, he could be jailed or executed. The claim would be repeated to investigators by other men who had never spoken of the matter, even with their spouses. It turned out the witnesses had been victims of a bizarre hazing ritual. Okay, hang on. I need a coffee before we get into this. All right, here we go. For decades, certain new commanders of the Air Force most classified programs, as part of their induction briefings, would be handed a piece of paper with a photo of what looked like a flying saucer. The craft was described as an anti-gravity maneuvering vehicle. An F-17 Nighthawk flies over the Sierra Nevada mountain range in 2002 near Edwards Air Force Base, California. Okay, well, if you see that from the bottom, that does look like a UFO. Triangle one. Anyway, let's continue. The officers were told that the program they were joining, dubbed Yankee Blue, was part of an effort to reverse engineer the technology on the craft. They were told never to mention it again. Many never learned it was fake. Kirkpatrick found the practice had begun decades before and appeared to continue still. The Defense Secretary's office sent a memo out across the service in the spring of 2023 ordering the practice to stop immediately, but the damage was done. Investigators are still trying to determine why officers had misled subordinates, whether as some type of loyalty test, a more deliberate attempt to deceive, or something else. After that 2023 discovery, Kirkpatrick's deputy briefed President Joe Biden's director of national intelligence, Avril Haines, who was stunned. Interesting. Could this be the basis for the persistent belief that the U.S. has an alien program that we've concealed from the American people? Haines wanted to know, according to people familiar with the matter. How extensive was it, she asked. The official responded, "Ma'am, we know it went on for decades. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds of people. These men signed NDAs. They thought it was real. What the F is going on right now? I never heard of any of this. Not this specific. Why didn't Kirkpatrick come out with this before? Anyway, let's get back to the article. I don't want to interrupt it. The finding could have been devastating to the Air Force. The service was particularly sensitive to the allegations of hazing and asked that Arrow hold off on including the finding in the public report, even after Kirkpatrick had briefed lawmakers on the episode. Kirkpatrick retired before that report was finished and released. In a statement, a Defense Department spokeswoman acknowledged that Arrow had uncovered evidence of fake classified program materials relating to extraterrestrials and had briefed lawmakers and intelligence officials. The spokeswoman, Sue Go, said the department didn't include that information in its report last year because the investigation wasn't completed, but expects to provide it in another report scheduled for later this year. What? The department is committed to releasing a second volume of its historical record report to include Arrow's findings on reports of potential pranks and inauthentic materials, Go said. Okay. UFO kitsch abounds near Hico, Nevada, outside Area 51. Okay. A bunker in Montana. Kirkpatrick investigated another mystery that stretched back 60 years. In 1967, Robert Salas, now 80... That was my watch. In 1967, Robert Salas, now 84, was an Air Force captain sitting in a walk-in closet-sized bunker manning the controls of 10 nuclear missiles in Montana. I actually interviewed Robert Salas. You can find that interview on the channel. I'll put a link in the description. Let's see what they say about Robert. He was prepared to launch apocalyptic strikes should Soviet Russia ever attack first, and got a call around 8 p.m. one night from the guard station above. A glowing reddish-orange oval was hovering over the front gate, Salas told Kirkpatrick's investigators. The guard had their rifles drawn, pointed at the oval object, appearing to float above the gate. A horn sounded in the bunker, signaling a problem with the control system. All 10 missiles were disabled. Salas soon learned a similar event occurred at other silos nearby. Were they under attack? Salas never got an answer. The next morning, a helicopter was waiting to take Salas back to base. Once there, he was ordered. Never discussed the incident. There's a picture of Robert Salas in his report. There's Robert Salas there. There's this. Okay. Salas was one of 5 men interviewed by Kirkpatrick's team who witnessed such events in the 1960s and 70s. While sworn to secrecy, the men began sharing their stories in the 90s in books and documentaries. Kirkpatrick's team dug into the story and discovered a terrestrial explanation. The barriers of concrete and steel surrounding America's nuclear missiles were thick enough to give them a chance if hit first by a Soviet strike. But scientists at the time feared the intense storm of electromagnetic waves generated by a nuclear detonation might render the hardware needed to launch a counterstrike unusable. Here's a model of an electromagnetic pulse testing site shown in a 1978 Pentagon document. Okay. To test this vulnerability, the Air Force developed an exotic electromagnetic generator that simulated this pulse of disruptive energy without the need to detonate a nuclear weapon. When activated, this device placed on a portable platform 60 feet above the facility would gather power until it glowed, sometimes with a blinding orange light. It would then fire a burst of energy that could resemble lightning. What is going on right now? I've never heard of any of this. Okay, so this is a 1973 Pentagon document, diagrams a close-up of the part of the equipment that fires an electromagnetic wave that can appear like a bolt of lightning during the test. Okay, interesting. Huh. The electromagnetic pulses snake down cables connected to the bunker where launch commanders like Salas sat, disrupting the guidance system, disabling the weapons, and haunting the men to this day. But any public leak of the tests at the time would have allowed Russia to know that America's nuclear arsenal could be disabled in a first strike. The witnesses were kept in the dark. To this day, Salas believes he was party to an intergalactic intervention to stop nuclear war, which the government has tried to hide. He is half right. The experience left the octogenarian. Oh, okay. Because he's over 80. Why? Deeply skeptical of the U.S. military and its ability to tell the truth. There is a gigantic cover-up, not only by the Air Force, but every other federal agency that has cognizance of this subject. He said in an interview with the Journal, "We were never briefed on the activities that were going on. The Air Force shut us out of any information." Concealing the truth from men like Salas and deliberate efforts to target the public with disinformation unleash within the halls of the Pentagon itself a dangerous force which would become almost unstoppable as decades passed. The paranoid mythology the U.S. military helped spread now has a hold over a growing number of its own senior officials who count themselves as believers. The crisis grew to a boil over a piece of metal mailed to a late-night radio host in 1996, which the sender said they had been told was part of a crashed spaceship. And it says, this article is the first of two parts. Stay tuned for part 2. So, wow. That was a long article. So, look, I'll wrap it up. I got to process this. It's the first time I read it. It was with y'all. So maybe what Ryan Graves was saying at the beginning and what other people are saying, like they just need to give part 2 a chance. Maybe there's a, this did happen, but there is this, and this happening, right? This article, everything in it could be true, but the phenomena can also still be real. That doesn't negate everything. What about all the different countries across the globe, right? Millions of people across the globe outside of the American military system in which this would happen, right? And just your average everyday person, private citizen, private pilots, right, having experiences. So it doesn't negate anything. I mean, this could all be true, right? Remember, I've always said every story in the UFO community can't be true, but I don't believe everyone is a lie either, right? The truth is somewhere in the middle. But this was interesting. I don't know. Can't wait to read the comments. Holy shit. All right. We'll see you on the next one, Vetters. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.